So I recently started watching this new-ish YouTuber who hasn't been making videos for that long, but you wouldn't be able to tell that from the quality of the videos that he does. Even though he only has a few videos up, you would swear from how articulate and fluent he is that he's been doing this kind of thing for years. Right now I think he only has between 300 and 400 subscribers, but I think he should have had over 1,000 weeks ago. And that YouTuber is Katy Blackadder. If you haven't checked him out yet, go to his channel, you'll love his stuff. And one video that he made that's been getting a little bit of attention is a video about preaching atheism, and should we be preaching atheism when we as atheists do not want to be preached to. And he's noticed, as have I, that when we listen to atheist arguments on YouTube and how good some of them are, we want to go out and we want to spread these ideas around and show other people how reasonable and how hard to refute the idea of atheism is. But he and I have both found that when we actually try to approach religious people with these arguments, a lot of the time the conversation tends to be very awkward and not particularly productive. And a lot of the time at the end of it, you just end up feeling like kind of a jerk. So very few people that I know personally actually know that I have this YouTube channel or that I do this kind of thing. And part of the reason is that I have a lot of friends who are Christian or Hindu or Muslim, and I don't want them to interpret it as an expression of hostility toward them. I mean, they wouldn't be my friends if I felt hostile toward them. Now, the religious people that I know are actually very discreet about their religion. They're not the kind of people who are going to go around scolding you for not believing what they believe. But even the most vocal of the religious people I know only ever seem to talk about love and giving and helping people out, and it's kind of hard to criticize them for that. And sometimes I see people around with those little red A for atheism pins in their lapel, and I could never wear one of those. And that's for two main reasons. One is that I don't want people who've never bothered me to feel like I am expressing any kind of hostility toward them. And the second is that that's going to end up starting conversations with strangers that you really don't want to have with strangers. Because if a stranger or somebody you just don't know that well is going to ask you about your atheism and ask you to explain it, since you're not going to know what arguments they've already heard or what they haven't heard, or even what their own concept of what God even is, you're just not going to know how to start that conversation in a way that's most effective. And chances are you're probably going to make a case for atheism that's very clumsy and sounds very pedantic. And what seems to be true of a lot of religious people is that because they were not converted to their religion via an argument, you're probably not going to be able to deconvert them via argument either. But as Blackadder points out, it becomes inescapably necessary to discuss your atheism when the religious try to inject religion into politics. Because that's when religion ceases to be a private lifestyle choice and starts doing actual damage to other people. And that's why I do this. I'm doing my part to help the fight against the Falwells and the Robertsons and the Brian Fishers. When religious people try to impose their beliefs on people who don't want to accept them, that's when you have to speak up. Now, I have the luxury of living in Canada, and Blackadder has the luxury of living in Britain. And in these countries, it seems to be generally understood that religion is a private matter and it's not a political ideology as it seems to be in the United States. So he and I have the luxury of knowing lots of quiet, discreet religious people that we can just leave alone because they're not bothering us. Now, of course, Canada does have a few loudmouth fundamentalists. Ian Juby is Canadian, Venom Fang X is Canadian. But if a guy like Rick Santorum ever tried to run for political office in most parts of Canada, he would just get laughed at. And we don't have organizations here like the Westboro Baptist Church who make it their mission to persecute and obnoxiously harass those who don't share their beliefs. So the bottom line for me is I will tolerate religion insofar as it is tolerable. While I think we should be ready to make our case for atheism for any curious religious person who wants to learn about it, I think going after religious people who are just minding their own business and not bothering anybody else generally tends to be both obnoxious and not particularly productive.